Hey everyone, so in this video I'm just going to briefly go over part of the summer beach bash. Mainly I'm going to be playing through the roadmap just because I know people are unsure if they're strong enough to beat the roadmap, because in Scopely's post they said either work on the stash or do the roadmap, don't try to do both. And the difficulty in the roadmap, you know what, it's a pretty tough roadmap to be honest. But the lucky side is you do get to use items if you need them. To accomplish the roadmap, you need 80 beach balls, and that means no mistakes. So I like going off against teams using a Mercer lead, just because the defensive team never really has any mods. So even though I'm facing a Jackie team and she has a 75% chance to resist stun and confuse, it does mean that I stun the other 4 characters, which gives me a chance to kind of collect myself and figure this out. Now, this is a little more difficult than what it should be, I guess, because I didn't expect a tough team like this on the defensive team, so I don't have an attacking leader. But I do have Princess, I do have Mercer, I have my Priya, and I have Glenn, who gives me a plus 65% attack up, as well as defense up. And I guess Kenny is pretty decent because he can help heal my team and increase my crit chance. So now that I have an idea of what I can find on these roadmaps, moving forward I'm definitely going to take a more offensive team and probably bring Mercer in as support. I like using Mercer, as I mentioned, because it just gives me that chance to have a full turn where I can attack and build AP and not worry about the defensive team very much. And if you are worried about the defensive team, bring in some items. You know, some smelling salts, nerve gas to nerf the opponent's attack. Bring in some healing. I think there are replenishes. You could bring in grenades to help you bring down the opponent's defensive team as well. Like, there's just multiple different items that you could use that could help leverage things in your position. Now, of course, if you don't have a Mercer support or a Mercer lead yourself, you can always just go with like 2 attacking leads, because then your attacking power is very high. The downside would be if the opponent has a Jackie lead and you end up like rampaging your own team. That would probably be the biggest worry and most realistic worry. So if that happens, you know, bring in those smelling salts so that you can revive your team. I'm not really worried about getting a perfect score against these teams. I'm just worried about actually completing it, because if I make a mistake, I am not going to be able to get my tattered umbrellas at the end, which will help me redeem some interesting items that we will go through at the very end of this. I would definitely say that for newer players, this roadmap would be quite difficult for them. I use some very synergetic teams, and again, by using Mercer to start off, it just gives me a huge advantage, even if I'm faced against a team that has much higher attack or much higher defense. I'm using a relatively free-to-play attack team. Like, I'm considering Priya to be relatively free-to-play, Princess at this point, Ivanova definitely, Maggie, who's a commander, but you could use Nick, or you could use any other commander, even Xander, and then Dr. Stevens, of course. You could bring in a better attack up tune, so even like Kate could do decently. Alice, Erin is a pretty decent attacker and an attack lead, so she could help you out. There's just a multitude of different tunes and teams that you could make. Just make sure you bring in some items if you're unsure. Next, when we go into the black market, we can see that there are various items we can redeem with our tattered umbrellas. So there are the gentleman cards, wave tokens for beach balls, so that's for a stash that, to be honest, I wasn't interested in. Stephanie's shotgun. So this is something I'm thinking about, and it's all about if I get enough umbrellas, because a 5-star weapon is very hard to pass up on, especially when the 3rd slot is exactly what you want it to be. Impair plus AP down when attacking, so a better chance to drain minus 20 AP from the enemy, and impair for 3 turns. The 4th slot, increase basic attack damage by 20% and ignore defense bonuses, coupled with plus 35% attack and plus 35 crit. You know, this weapon is actually pretty decent, and I have a few ideas in mind on how I could change maybe the 4th slot, or maybe just up the attack and add a huge bonus to AP when attacking. This type of weapon would also be great on Onslaught, for example, or even on Survival Road where you need critical hits as well as high attacking and controlling power when it's walkers and people. There's also armory tokens, which are always useful to pick up, canteens, engine grease, Benedicts, which I'm tempted at, GPSs, Brady's, varnish, and finally there are still some Storm cards. So Storm is a very interesting character that I'm pretty tempted at, but I'm just going to kind of wait and see what I want to get at the very end. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching and listening to my video. I hope this gave you guys an idea of what to expect on the roadmap, as well as what's of value in the shop.